Hi there, everyone. My name is Jennifer Bewersi, one of the co-directors of Music for Your Inbox, and welcome to another one of our artist chats. Today we're going to be chatting with the two artists behind this month's art pairing, the creator of this month's sound film, Todd Moellenberg, and the creator of this month's mail art, Angie Jennings. So I'm going to get them invited, and then we'll chat.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Angie.
Hi, nice to see you.
Well, it's so nice to get to talk to you guys together this time. And I've put together some nerdy little questions. But first, I wanted to kind of officially introduce you. Todd Moellenberg, you're a performer, poet, visual artist, kind of moves through so many different mediums. And you made the sound film for this month called Spitting Images. And Angie Jennings, performer, visual artist, also moving through so many mediums. Created the mail art for this month called A Response to Spits. And I thought it might be nice to start out because the reason you two's art was paired together is because you have this really long history of collaboration. And you were able to kind of step into this kind of flow of working together that often artists on our platform don't get the chance to because they are just meeting each other for the first time. But you have this really cool history. So I was wondering if you could talk about where that history came from, when you met each other, and what it was like to kind of form this collaboration over time.
Well, that's
Angie.
sweet. We get to reminisce.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Angie, you want to give it a go first?
We met at UC San Diego when we were both graduate students. And I don't know the first time. I don't know how I met you, Todd, but probably because you lived with Nicole and Matt in the house.
Who were other artists in the art department. Yeah.
Right. And do you want to say something, Todd?
I was remembering, I don't think I met you there, but I remember your first year review, the performance you did with the spirals.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
that's
that was
nice.
just that was such a spark for me and wanting to really meet you. And and then I think you were not yet living with us. And then you moved into the house, and I think we just became such solid friends. And at the time, I think we were both doing a fair amount of performance. And we had some other friends like Matt Savitsky who was performing with us, or we were, just going to each other's stuff. And so I think, and Angie and I did a year-long project called The Family Room, where it was just a bunch of us music art people just trying to generate prompts for performance as a group, which was pretty ad hoc at times. But that lasted a good while. And then the other one I remember is just our performance Packing Peanuts that we did, just Angie and me, which might be the only two-person collaboration as performance artists that I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
Though I did.
Go ahead.
Oh no! Now I'm remembering that I did your play about the chemist.
Oh yeah, you were in that. Yeah, that was great. That was one. Yeah, we did a performance at the Museum of Contemporary Art in San Diego.
Yeah, and we have,
Yep.
if anyone's interested in kind of seeing what some of these things look like, we have a post on our Instagram feed that shows some images from y'all's collaboration to kind of show how it unfolded and give some context there. And so something else I wanted to talk about was both of you have these really wide practices, and I have this soft spot in my heart for artist practices that really move fluidly between material and context and format and those kinds of things. And so Angie, you move between performance, sculpture, drawing, painting, and I was wondering if you could talk about kind of your relationship to these different mediums and techniques, and how what drives you to move between them.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I'm interested, in exploring and not being limited by material or process. I think one thing that, often connects, these different pursuits or ideas of chance and kind of freedom, and also, some sort of conceptual backing or underpinning that I've, become really intrigued with. So yeah, I would say this idea of chance is heavily imbued in different forms of my practice. Yes.
Do you feel like the conceptual elements come like first into clarity and you pursue them through the mediums, or do you find yourself like playing with the mediums and the concepts emerge from them, or maybe both?
Yeah, I think it goes both ways. Yeah, I'm working on a new series of drawings right now, and I don't really know what they're about, so I'm just like, trying to contemplate on the outcome. I don't have a set agenda kind of going into the work. Besides, I'm kind of limiting myself to specific material, but yeah, I guess they're more of I would say experiments right now.
Beautiful. And Todd, you move between, poetry and performance and a lot of these like short form video works. And when we were first kind of working on, when this sound film first came out, you were using the term conceptual diarist to kind of describe your process. And I was wondering if that still feels like how you're moving, and if you could describe like how your daily practice of art making plays into this kind of unfurling, spinning out into different mediums.
Yeah. To answer your first question, I was also thinking about that, and I haven't really been keeping up like I used to, with like the really daily draft sketch making and publishing. I mean, it's still in me, but I find that it comes in like bits and bursts. Um, Lately, it's been less about like the post and more about like the story, like
Mm,
but even so, I think I'm a little bit slower, and most of like what I release out in the world is just much more casual and observational. But I think that also is, uh, I think spitting images was like signaled a bit of a shift because that felt like such a culmination of the daily video work I was doing at the time, and since then I got a decent piano, which was a major change in my life. And so I was focused on like like applications of those ideas to my own instrument. And that didn't really lend itself as like fluidly or organically to like my conceptual diary process. It was a bit slower, and my background is as a pianist, and I think in the past I'd always sort of avoided addressing it in my creative work, and so it felt like I needed to learn a lot more and be a little slower. Maybe I was a little more careful too, because it's like something I feel like I have more like technical knowledge about and a more intimate relationship to than a lot of the other mediums I use, which I feel more like uh, just I feel like I can be more rough about, like video,
mm-hmm.
poetry, stuff like that.
That makes a lot of sense. So and I can kind of see a connection to this idea. And she was talking about like with chance and experimentation. It sounds like some of your relationships to medium lend themselves to more like chance in an abandoned kind of way, rather than like the kind of careful technical process. And I was wondering, because you also mentioned this, that this piece was kind of a shift from into like this kind of long form culmination kind of format. And just to describe it in case for like context, so the conceptual diary work you were doing at the time is these very short videos that deal with like phasing and looping. And would you say like 30 seconds, 10 to 30 seconds, that kind of range? And then this film is, I believe, like 11 or 12 minutes. So it was taking like a very like short form medium and expanding it in this really elaborate way. And I was wondering if you could talk more about like what was that shift like for you, and how did it feel like a culmination?
The shift itself like felt really familiar to my process, like I found in other uh like there's always been sort of an inflection point where I take these tiny pieces that I'm just almost obsessively releasing into the world and trying to order them and structure something bigger from there. So that's really what it felt like making spitting images. Felt like I kind of hit a saturation point with material I could do with the phasing processes. And then I wanted to order them. I knew that. And I wanted to also like use less found footage that I was using in like often a humorous or sometimes like a more pointed fashion, but also just like I wanted for this project to like bring myself back in and make the work a little bit more like self-oriented, if it's not weird to say. And uh, it was a chance to be a bit of a performance artist again too. But yeah, I think I write this way with poetry where it's often just building up fragments into longer forms, and then I see those as their final like culminating form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so, Angie,
Oh, I had a question.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Isn't there like an element of coding or something involved, or no? Am I wrong?
All pencil and paper. I wish I knew how to code, but
it's like your own form of coding, right?
Yeah. It's like totally manual, but yeah, I was like there. What Jennifer was saying, like about like chance and abandon, like that has been a part of my work, maybe more as a performance artist, but like I find with something like spitting images, it's very rule based. You know, the chance, like the stuff that comes about is all initiated by a really strict process, but I never figured out how to do it, like have a computer do it for me.
Okay.
So yeah, to answer your question, it's just me doing it longhand and trying to make it as efficient as possible.
Okay.
We actually have, if people keep an eye out, there'll be a video, I think it's coming out in a couple days, that you created last time around, Todd, that shows how the process kind of unfolds, the like manual. It's almost like embroidery for video in a way, because it's very like stitch by stitch. And so people can see how like that kind of process. It's funny now that you're kind of bringing that up, Angie, like, because there is that kind of tension between like these kind of not quick, but like the spinning out that happens in this daily kind of like less like culmination or precious, and then but the actual work of it is very like stitch by stitch, and that's
right,
really
monotonous.
Monotonous.
There we go. But
yeah.
Did you keep all your writing, Todd, on paper, or?
Oh yeah, I'd like
to see that.
Are you asking like just like how I did the math?
Yeah, I'd like to see like the math, and that sounds interesting.
Oh, cool. I didn't see it as that precious, but it's somewhere in some notebook.
Right.
Yeah. And like, you know, the
archives.
postcard. Yeah, exactly. But like, you know, the postcard that has that like funny like 2-layer text that I was making, like that is really similar to some of like the writing work I did before the video. That's not just like the math, like figuring out how things add up.
Yeah.
So there is some of that does kind of bleed back into finished text products, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I actually have this, because we're in a different world this time around. I actually have the postcard with me to show, and it's called A Response to Spits. And what I thought was really, I was thinking this morning about, you know, Angie, like your practice and how a lot of it is about like bringing things that are like othered or not visible to the surface in sometimes really like abstract or oblique ways that are like kind of call the viewer to like really dig in and think, and then sometimes like really direct ways. And I was thinking about how this, you know, the idea of response is kind of similar to that idea of like leaning on these skills of like making the invisible visible, because I feel like I wonder if in part of like you're responding to Todd, where you know, you kind of draw out things that are visible about his work, and or in maybe invisible in a certain way and make them visible, or there seems to be some connection to me between this idea of responding and your skill of like making things visible. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk about why you were drawn to like response, and if you see any connection there.
Oh yeah, Yeah, thanks for, I think those words are pretty key. Visible and visibility and invisibility. That's something I think about also in relation to my identity, but also, energies that are surrounding us that are invisible, or maybe powers, right? It could be like a political power, it could be a magical power, it could be a radio wave, I don't know. So I think it's interesting to think about how to translate sound. I mean, artists have been doing that, for a long time. So I wanted to do something in that regard, but then also when I think about, well, this is pretty literal, I mean, the color of this, and when I think about spit, I don't know why. At this time, I was thinking about this green. I made kind of a squishy kind of ink blot test painting that left some really interesting marks. And then, and then I, utilized Photoshop to, replicate this image over and over and situate it and embed it within itself. Which was like similar processes that, Todd's doing with this piece through video and sound. And then it kind of coming out of the darkness, right? It's this unknown space. That's also, I'm very curious about, of course, the universe and the expanse and the unknown, and, how we grasp and form our understandings of our being, I think is something I'm always lingering in my mind.
Yeah, well, there's a really interesting kind of connection to the idea of infinity in this piece. And like, I think, some of the looping Todd points to, like you kind of bring to another conclusion, right, of like permanent looping or just a sense of infinity. And that makes sense to me, that like an interest in kind of the universe or like the expanses of possibility translates really directly to this idea of like, well, this piece kind of never ends in that center,
Right.
Which is really beautiful.
Yes, the multiverse.
The multiverse.
They say there's 11 parallel universes.
Only 11.
Yeah.
And as Todd mentioned, it's backwards. I can't make it forward. I don't know how to do that. But there's a really beautiful poem on the back that Todd wrote that would be performed by two people, which is such a nice way to kind of show another window into your practice, Todd, but also point to like this really collaborative nature of this, where like even to experience this poem, you'll need to collaborate with someone else and kind of reflect that like partnership. I was also wondering, like, what is it like to return to a work that's 2.5 years old for you too?
Yeah, that's strange. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I kind of want to find my postcards and, get a closer look. I guess it brings up, our history of our friendship. And I think also meeting Todd, that was the first time I was exposed to new music. So that was like very kind of mind-opening as well.
It's cool seeing.
Go ahead, Todd. I was going to say you too.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I don't know if this exactly answers the question, but it's so cool to look at the postcard again. Like I'm so glad you held it up, because I had this thought that's like, you never actually, because it gets so small in the middle, you never actually see the middle of the image. Like, and it made me think about, like, there was this element of play for me in the video where like you never quite get into alignment at the very end. I always sort of delayed that until the next scene. And so it's like that idea of actual like completeness being almost completely elusive. It was just something I noticed looking
totally
at the image
That's
today.
Really true. And just to describe that for people who haven't seen the film yet, there's in this phasing process, Todd, and correct me if I say something that's wrong, there's a number of clips that is shifted in this frame week. So you kind of have this single loop that starts turning at different kind of paces, but eventually they all would line up at the end if you kept going long enough. And in the film, what Todd does is he goes right to the very last frame when it would have lined up and cuts right before the alignment, which I think is just so playful and really fun. It's like if you sing a song and everything with the last note is left out, and you just like feel it in your whole body, which is
There's
fun.
the theme, I don't know if either of you watch this, but the theme song to Better Call Saul does that. It like stops
Really?
before the decay of the, yeah, it's so good.
What is that tune? Can you? I don't know that tune.
And then it just stops really like abruptly.
Okay.
Sorry for the tangent.
No, it's good. Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, since it has been so long, I was wondering, if there was anything about kind of your current practices looking back that you see as like kind of moved in a totally different direction, or has some kind of like echoes of what you were working on at the time. Maybe Todd, like I know you kind of moved into different permutations. I know you were doing for a while this series of like Amazon delivery photos, and you still do so where are you kind of now in what you're interested in?
Well, like the way of working is of that I was in when I was making spitty images. I feel like it has this grip on me that I'm always like trying to get out from. So, but I kind of get swept back in. I'm not really doing like phasing stuff these days. This stuff can always kind of come back like a really like long slow juggle or something. But like I did end up working with a bunch of artists after this, and like I was focused more on composing. So there was a period where I was actually applying the phase process to some piano stuff. Still haven't played it publicly, but I think it's interesting. But then I kind of moved away. I returned to the idea of the Markov chain, another like really rigorous long form math sort of thing that I had been teasing out before these phases. And I finished I guess I can't believe it's been this long, but I think in that time I finally kind of arrived at another bigger form, and I'm just not sure how I feel about it. And I'm kind of ready to find another way of working, and don't know if that will ever happen. But yeah, in a way, like it kind of haunts me, this sort of rigor, this like almost like unwillingness to fully abandon the chance that like maybe I could have as a performance artist. But it's definitely posing a problem in the here and now for me.
So is there kind of like this tenuous relationship to the process in a way that like you control it, but parts of it like it sounds like parts of it control you too?
Yeah. And I think it's very familiar to me and just my like ordinary thought patterns. So.
And Angie, I know you mentioned you're working on some drawings right now, and I got to see a peek of your studio earlier.
Oh, right.
So what's kind of what's happening for you in your process right now?
Yeah. I'm in a kind of a preliminary state. Started, a new series of investigations this summer. I was introduced, I also joined TikTok this summer, or, no, it's been a while, maybe winter, just to scroll. And, I'm getting fed all these weird conspiracy theories, and I've been, kind of go down wormholes. But there's this one theory about this glass called Dicinian glass. And it was used to formulate aura goggles, like in 1940, I believe. I have this book about it. It's by Walter John Kleiner. So he invented these aura goggles, and he used this dye. It's a mix of chemicals that are based from coal tar, and it turns this like deep kind of indigo blue. Anyways, it's thought that we're supposed to be able to see the astral realm through these things. So I'm fascinated with that. I've been experimenting a little bit with glass and how I can manipulate glass, found glass and paint, and thinking through this, pursuit that often artists take of like finding truth. That's something I've been intrigued in. I've been working with a lot of pastels and paper, and we'll see what happens. I don't know.
Have you been able to try the goggles?
That's the other thing. So the other thing, a part of the conspiracy, is that Dicinian, this like formula, it's banned. Like you can't make it in the States. So that's another part of and it's like very toxic. I think it's because it's toxic that it's like not available to be made. But then I'm like, oh, can I make my own, maybe out of asphalt, or I don't know.
Oh, that's fascinating. So there's like an element of like forbidden and taboo in it, or
Right, right. And then it will allow us to see like the veil that's like being hidden from us.
Oh, very beautiful.
Yes.
But I mean, thank you guys so much for joining me today and sharing about everything you're working on and reflecting on this project that you made for our platform 2.5 years ago. And I just wanted to invite anyone who wants to see it this month. It's we're celebrating summer, so it's free, and you can just tell us where to send the really beautiful nail art by Angie and sound film by Todd, and we'll send it to you this month. So thank you both so much.
Thanks for having
us.
Oh yeah, thanks.
So fun.
Great.
To catch up. Good to see you
All right,
both.
well,
totally.
Enjoy the rest of your summer.
You
Okay.
too.
All right.
Too. Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.